Okay, so I'm jamming on some pentatonics. Well, I'm jamming on a C minor 6 chord, and in this lesson, I want to talk about yet another book by Mr. Jerry Bergonzi. There it is, volume 2 called Pentatonics. I think this is the most well known of his books. I'm not sure, but that's the first one, or this is how I got introduced to his Inside Improvisation series. And it's an excellent book. And again, I'm not gonna go over everything because obviously, if you want to learn all this stuff, you should get the book. But I'm gonna just introduce you to some to the idea of different pentatonic scales. So, for us guitar players, when you think about pentatonic scales, we think of what we learned lesson 1, right? Like the good old pentatonic, often confused with the blues scale. So we tend to think of these scales as something we play over a blues, like with the kind of blues, Eric Clapton and that kind of phrasing, which is obviously something great. But this is not what we're talking about here. So you need to think of the pentatonic scales kind of more like a piano player or a saxophone player. If you think more like John Coltrane, how he would use pentatonics rather than how a blues guitar player would use pentatonics, right? So instead of playing, that kind of stuff, it's more like... So we're kind of getting introduced to a more tonality based on fourths rather than thirds. So which is what's so great about this. But first off, let's look at the different pentatonics. So I had a C minor 6 chord vamp, a kind of a ridiculous funk vamp there. So the first obvious choice would be a C minor pentatonic, just a regular good old C minor pentatonics. So over this chord, it sounds like this. Okay, so root, minor third, 4th or 11th, the 5th, the flat 7. So why is this sound so familiar, and why is it so showing up in every culture around the world? Seems like maybe it's because of the overtone series and how you could build a pentatonic scale from the overtones. So Miles Okazaki talks about this in his book and some of his videos, and you can see a great video with Bobby McFerrin where he showcases how the pentatonic scale seems to be built into our DNA, kind of, and there's this great video with him where he's demonstrating the pentatonic scale with the whole audience without saying anything, and they all kind of just follow along. So you might want to check that out. Now, we're not getting the interesting extensions with this scale, so there are other places where we can start, right? So I think most of you know this, so we could also start on the 5th. So a G minor pentatonic over a C. ninth there. So there's actually just one note different, right? So the problem with this is that being able to hear it, if I'm just playing a G minor pentatonic, I can't hear how it sounds like, well, like it's hard to hear what it sounds like in relation to the C. So you might, or you should get some kind of recording device like a loop pedal or something, so that you can at least have some kind of drone to practice over. So let's hear what that sounds like over a C minor 6. So G minor pentatonic. So the trick is to be able to hear it in relation to the C, right, rather than the G. And in this book, he lists a whole bunch of patterns which are really great. Stuff like... And it's good for us guitar players. We need to get out of the kind of box and think of these patterns in a way of how the intervals are actually moving and what are the shape of the pattern, rather than thinking of a box kind of fingering shape. So I find this book is really good in that sense, that because it's not from a guitar player, so it helps in that regard. Next you can start a minor pentatonic, a regular minor pentatonic on the 2nd degree or 9th degree. A D minor also works, and this time we get the A, which is the note that defines the minor 6 chord, or you could say that it's a minor 13 chord, but in this case it's more of a minor 6 chord because I'm not playing a 7th. So D minor pentatonic. As opposed to C minor. D minor. Alright, so again, this is why some of you might have like a bunch of licks that you play over a C minor, this kind of shape, the regular like kind of stuff, and if you just move that to a D and think that's not gonna sound good, even though theoretically it works, but it just doesn't sound good in my opinion. So you need again to create lines from the D minor pentatonic that is has some kind of relationship with the C, rather than just transposing the stuff you know in C to D, if you know what I mean. Okay, so now there are other pentatonic scales. He goes over quite a few of them, and I'm not gonna go over all of them. Some of them are more user-friendly than others, and again, if you wanna learn all that stuff, you should get the book. And this book is not very expensive, and it shouldn't be hard to find. It's a very famous book, and this publishing company, Advanced Music, they have a website where I think you can order the books straight from the website. So the next scale that I'm going to talk about is something that he calls a minor 6 pentatonic. So instead of a flat 7 at the end, so C, E flat, F, G, B flat, I'm going to play C, E flat, F, G, A natural. So I'm replacing the B flat with an A kind of. So that gets really interesting. The patterns I talked about earlier. tricky. There are all these fingering problems that we run into. So let me play that scale over this vamp, and we shall see what it sounds like. So C minor 6 pentatonic. Kind of reminds me of Santana. It's his kind of sound. So it's not just for jazz, it could be used in rock. If you want to be really adventurous, you could move this scale up a whole step and get, because how the melodic minor works. I've seen John Scofield talk about this scale in some interview or something, but I'm not a big fan. But it would be... it's a bit too weird for my taste, but if you're looking for that outside kind of sound, this could be one way of getting there. So another scale that is mentioned in this book is a little bit more weird. It's what he calls a G, or a major flat 6 pentatonic. So we need to start on the 5th degree of C, which is G, and play a major pentatonic. But obviously if we do that, we get the E natural, which is gonna clash with the minor tonality, so we just lower the E to an E flat. Interesting sound, but it's like I rarely find myself using this scale. It just doesn't seem to come naturally to me. So we have a 5th and a 6th, like our 13th, and then we have a major 7, a 9th, and a flat 3. So maybe I should play a vamp, a C minor major 7 vamp instead of minor 6, so I'll do that. Let me erase this. So I haven't really figured out how to use this loop pedal, so bear with me. There it is. So I'm just gonna make a little minor major 7 vamp here. That wasn't so great, but it will do. So I kind of like to think about this scale around the G major triad. And just add the other 2 notes. So I kind of like it now. Maybe I should start pricing this scale and use it more. Another thing that we should mention is that depending on the context of what we're playing over, if it's a jazz swing kind of modern thing, or if we're playing an old jazz standard in a more traditional setting, it's gonna this material is gonna work depending on what you're playing over, right? So I remember seeing a workshop with Howard Roberts before he died, and obviously, and it was the funniest thing. I'll always remember this. He was doing a workshop with another guitar teacher who was kind of comping for him, and he was talking about how to play outside, and he was talking about a play over a major 7 chord or something, and he wanted to demonstrate that, and the other guy went like, well, should I play a bossa? And Howard Roberts goes, no way, that's gonna sound awful. Just go like, right? So it makes so much sense. Like if you're playing over a bossa vamp in a bar, and you start using all these scales, that might sound totally wrong. But if you're playing in a kind of free open, so I'm gonna try to make a C minor major little rubato thing here with the loop pedal, like, right? You see what I mean? That's kind of sounds good. That would be a situation if you're playing in a situation like that where you can actually use these kind of scales. Ultimately, you don't want to be thinking about like, am I playing a pentatonic flat 6, whatever. You should just be playing what you hear and what comes naturally to you. But in order to get there, we need to practice all this stuff. I think it helps. Even again, I don't use this scale as much, but it still helps me when I'm practicing from this book, for example, because I'm getting to know these sounds and get more familiar with melodic minor sounds and what have you. So that was my pentatonic lesson. See you next time. Before I leave you, I just want to show you what a shitty day we have here in Stockholm. It is the 3rd or 4th of January, 2018, and January usually is like winter time in Sweden, right? So check it out. I don't know if you can see that, but it's cold rain. So Merry Christmas.